Well, good afternoon, everybody. And first of all, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet. I pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. And I think when we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, we should acknowledge they are Australia's first storytellers, and we are determined they're able to keep telling their story on our ABC. I'm joined by my colleague, Tony Burke, our Shadow Minister for the Arts, for whom he and I will be doing our arts policy launch later today, Senators Christina Keneally and our candidate for Higgins, Fiona McLeod. Should I say the marginal seat of Higgins. Now, this election is about the future of Australia. But at this election, I would also put to you it is about the future of the ABC. Now, I know that the ABC matters to all of you here, but I also know it means so much to millions of our fellow Australians. It matters because the ABC is part of the fabric of Australia. When you think about it, every day, 17 million of our fellow Australians, I'd probably assume about 100% of everyone here, consumes some form of ABC content each week. And when we think about it, cricket and football, the best coverage of women's sport, drama, comedy, homegrown and brilliant in its production and its delivery. When you think about Play School, my youngest daughter's favourite, Behind the News, The Drum, the Prime Minister's least favourite, Q&A, why won't he go on it? We think about the investigative journalism, the documentaries. We think about all of the shows which provide us new insights into old faiths, into science, into history, where we've been and where we are going as a nation. For me, the ABC is about new generations falling in love with old favourites on iView, the multi-channels. The ABC is our companion for long drives. It is the friend for many older Australians late at night. And the ABC is the lifeline of the bush. It is the most important, the most reliable source of information and emergency warnings in the worst of times. It is why, at this election, Labor needs your help to save the ABC. This is not an election where one can afford to sit on the sidelines and say there is no difference or there is nothing at stake. We need you to vote for change. We need you to vote for change to end the chaos of this chaotic coalition who, if they are re-elected, will continue more of the same. The new managing director of the ABC has made it crystal clear. The Liberal cuts which are slated, they're part of their budget. They've made it clear, the ABC, this will mean more job losses, it'll mean more closures, it'll mean more damage to the coverage of local news and sport. It is simple as this when you speak to your friends when you leave here. If you vote Liberal at the next election, it'll be 3 more years of the last 6 years. 3 more years of the last 6 years. And of course, not to put too fine a point on it, but there are many within the ranks of the Liberal Party, not all, but many, who would like to see the ABC privatised. They regularly declare this must happen, the hard right. They regularly say that the ABC is wrong. They regularly attack the ABC. And as we have seen time and time again in this government, What the hard right wants from a Liberal Prime Minister, the hard right gets from a Liberal Prime Minister. If you don't believe me, let's all send a big cheerio to Malcolm Turnbull watching this on iView in New York. But what is even more remarkable than the relentless attacks of the hard right, the relentless cuts of Liberal governments, the relentless culture wars, the relentless attacks on the ABC's independence, the relentless attack on ABC content, the relentless attack upon ABC journalists, is that despite all of this, the ABC is still more trusted than any other of our existing institutions. This must drive to distraction those armchair warriors subscribing to The Spectator, subscribing to the IPA, shaking their head at how does the ABC, amongst all of the institutions in Australian civic life, still sail through the seas that come up against it. But there is a little bit of deterioration. We must understand that whilst the ABC is more trusted and more loved than other civic institutions, it is under pressure relentlessly. We live in an era of fake news. We live in an era where science and evidence is only given the moral relative weight of half the argument, and stupidity is weighed as equally as intelligence in public discourse. We live in a world where you can prove that climate change is real, and therefore 50% of the argument has to go to the people who say it's not real. Facts are facts, truth is truth, science is science, and we need an ABC which is not bullied or intimidated or cowed by a new era of institutionalised ignorance. When George Orwell wrote 1984, Winston Smith heard at one part of the story that Big Brother was able to say, great news, that the latest version of the dictionary had fewer words than the previous version of the dictionary. And you'd read this then and you thought, this is that Orwell, very imaginative but prone to exaggeration. He'd never heard of Twitter. Even Orwell couldn't have invented 140 characters and the era of fake news in this country. We need our ABC. The ABC matters to me, and it matters to my party. It matters to the Labor Party and the Labor movement. I haven't just come here to criticise the government, as fun as that can be. I came here to present the case for change. What I want to do is tell this room, and through you to millions of other people who care about policy, who care about the choices, and who care about a positive view of the future. We will do more to make sure that the ABC is well-funded, independent public broadcaster consistent with its charter. So first things first. If we are elected next Saturday, we will put back the $83.7 million that this government has cut in the last two budgets. All back, no argument, straight away, save the jobs. On top of this, we will put an additional $10 million, and we've spoken to experts. This isn't just what we think is a good idea, it's us talking with the people in the know what the ABC needs. We've consulted. $10 million to boost resources for regional news and sports and emergency broadcasting. Actually, we've got a few of these announcements so you can contain that excitement. $2 million to upgrade audio description services for Australians who are blind or have poor vision. And today, I'm proud to announce further, we will put an additional $40 million to support drama and comedy, new children's programming, more music content. We'll make sure that B1 never has to walk alone. They'll always have B2 funded. And of course, SBS, which is, to my way of thinking, very important too, will provide $20 million to them too, because we believe in public broadcasting in this country. And I think equally as important, perhaps not as immediately useful to the ABC, but I think even more important in the longer term, is after speaking with people who care and love the ABC deeply, people who've worked within its ranks, people who think about its future, Michelle Rowland and I are going to make clear today that we want to talk to the board of the ABC and the new managing director. We want to start the conversation about 5-year funding, not 3-year funding, proper certainty, locked away. Choose to put more resources into the ABC. These are modest injections, but I can already hear now. And another thing I would say to those who hate the ABC has a unique responsibility. In my own mind, I call it ABC everywhere. ABC's reach should be everywhere. ABC should be available to everyone, everywhere. ABC reach everywhere, not only in our cities, in our country, but in our region, in the Pacific, sharing and promoting and encouraging Australian values. Now, a strong, quality, independent national broadcaster does require resources. Now, I can predict what my opponents, with their threadbare policy offering for the next election, will say. They'll say, this is a cost. I regard scarce and important taxpayer money expended on the ABC as an investment. This is the problem with these Conservatives. They know the price of everything and the value of nothing. Now, actually, I'm not telepathic. I know what they will say, because it's the same thing they say about everything else. We want cheaper childcare for 1 million Australian families. Oh, too expensive for those families. We want pensioners to access dental care through Medicare. Too expensive, they cry. We want better schools and hospitals. We want better public transport in our cities. Too expensive, they cry, too expensive. They always say, the Conservatives, Australia can't afford it. Australia can't afford it, they say. But I would like you to remember now, when you hear them say that Australia can't afford it, what they really mean is Australians don't deserve it. They're happy to go soft on multinationals, large companies who pay no tax in Australia. They'll tell you that's just the way of the world, it's all too hard. They're happy to provide billions of dollars in subsidies to property investors to make losses. They're happy to present income tax checks back to people who haven't paid income tax in that year. We can always afford all of that. But when it comes to the childcare, the schools, the hospitals, the pensioners, the public transport, when it comes to the ABC, they say that we just can't afford it. In my party, we take a different view. And this is at the heart of the election. You're going to hear a lot in the next week. You've heard a lot in the last 30 days. But it is about choices. It's about a vision. I suspect many of you think that the political system is broken, that no great difference and nothing changes with your vote. But you see, the things that you think are really important, just going backwards, deteriorating in status, decaying. This is what has been happening with the ABC. The constant attacks, despite the trust in the ABC, the loss of morale, the politics at the very top, it has an impact over time. We have an alternative vision, not just of the ABC, but of the nation. I don't think the future is as hard as the government makes out. I don't think that the nation can't afford to provide equal treatment to women. I don't think that the nation can't afford to sort out people's penalty rates. I don't think that the nation can't afford to give our young people a leg up when they're buying their first home. I don't think that this nation can't afford to close the gap between our first Australians and other Australians. I don't think that this country can find taking real action on climate change too hard. It is the exact opposite. You and millions of Australians want to know there is a choice. You want to know there is a plan. You want to know there is a sense of the big picture. We in Labor will help write a bigger story for Australia. We are not afraid to say that equal treatment of our first Australians is a good thing. We're not afraid to say that women and men should be paid the same thing. We're not afraid to say there should be more women in Parliament. We're not afraid to say that we will reform our tax system to stop rewarding those with vast masses of capital and make it harder for our fixed income and income earners. There are choices. And we don't think that tackling climate change is too hard. In fact, we think that if this government gets re-elected, we'll lose another 3 years on these big debates. This government will always tell you what's wrong about us, but they have nothing good to say about themselves. I said yesterday in Cairns, the Liberals have to lose an election to learn that climate change is real. Today, here in Deakin Square here, today I say the Liberals have to lose an election. The Liberals have to lose an election to learn hands off the ABC. Vote for change on May the 18th. Thank you very much.